though you're making a lot more money, you're spending a lot more on housing and gas and food, etc. All right, so let's say that you had California ranked first among the 50 states in average income. So let's say that we know that California average income for a person, all right, is about $68,900 per person. All right, and then West Virginia is ranked the lowest, all right, which I used to live in, but it's a beautiful state though. Okay, West Virginia ranked last, and its average income is $46,600 per person. Now, even though the average income is a lot less, it's a lot cheaper to live in West Virginia than to live in California. So when I lived in West Virginia, I actually worked in Maryland, and I lived in a tiny town called Harper's Ferry. My wife and I were just married, and we could get a starter home for a lot less money than we could in Maryland. So there's advantages to states like that. All right. So here's what we want to figure out. Okay, we want to answer these three questions. Okay. So we're going to say answer both questions below. Both questions below in both absolute and relative terms. All right, so when we say absolute, that's when we're just calculating, well, what's the difference between the two amounts? Relative is when we're taking what the difference is, and we're finding out what percent it is of the starting value or the reference value. Okay. So when we did this one here, the difference between the prices of the cars was 10,000, and then we found out what percent of 40,000 is 10,000, and it turned out to be 25%. All right. On this one, the reason the answer is different is because we take the difference, but now we find out what percent is 10,000 of 50,000, and it was 20%. So these are different because they're referencing different starting values, okay? One is referencing the inexpensive car, this one is referencing the expensive car. So that's why those two values are different. All right. So let's divide our paper in half here. Okay, and over here on the left, let's write out this question. How much higher is the average income in California than in West Virginia? And then over on this side, just switch California and West Virginia. How much lower is the in West Virginia than in California? Okay. All right, so I'm going to be calling on you, so you're going to have to turn your mics on. So if you're not by your computer, come back. All right, so if we look at this first example here, all right, Emily, what would we call the compared, which one of these would be the compared value and which one would be the referenced value? Emily. Are you there, Emily?
She probably fell back to sleep because it's pretty early.
Wake up, Emily. All right, how about you, Madison? What would we call the compared value? What would it be in this problem? And what would be the referenced value in this problem?
Isn't the first one the compared value?
Yep. So this would be, the compared value would be California. So that's California's income. And then the more than, or than, I just look for the word then my reference value is going to be 46.6. And then over here, they just switch. Okay, so this is California, this is West Virginia. So over here are compared and are referenced is 60. Okay. So we want to answer now the questions in absolute and relative terms. So absolute means find the absolute difference. Okay, so we'll take this. And we'll do the absolute difference. All right, and let's see. Corey, how am I going to find the absolute difference based on what we did yesterday?
You subtract the compared value from the reference value.
Okay, so so when I do compared from reference, it would look like this. Okay, you would go reference minus compared. So when you say subtract compared from reference, when you use that phrase, the compared value is second. And we want the compared value first. So, Corey, how would you say this order? So you said subtract the compared from the reference. That would be this order. So how would you say to do the subtraction in this order, to Corey?
So we just like reverse it then and say subtract the reference value from the compared value?
Yeah, exactly. So the order matters in subtraction, all right? So when Corey said subtract the reference value from the compared value is first, okay? So we're going to do subtract the reference value from the compared value. So in this case, it's going to be 68,900, take away 46,600, and that is our absolute difference. And then over here, it's going to be just the reverse. Okay, so all we're doing is just following this right here. Okay, so this is going to be 46,600 minus 68,900. All right, so we subtract those guys out. 68,900 take away 46,600. All right, and I get $22,300. So this is $22,300. So automatically over here, I know it's going to be negative. If I switch the order of these, I'm just going to get the negative of that. Okay, so over here, I put negative $22,300. So that's the absolute difference for both of those questions. All right, now we're going to do the relative difference. Okay, so the relative difference, this is going to be a percentage. All right, so we're going to take the compared minus the reference, which we already did. It's right there. So the top of this is the compared minus the reference divided by the reference, and then we multiply that by 100. I left that out. Let me make a little bit of space here. Okay, so this is going to equal compared minus reference divided by the reference times 100. Now you've already done this, okay? This part right there, guys, is that number, 22,300. Okay, so this is going to be 22,300 divided by the reference value, which is up here, 46,600, and I'm going to multiply that by 100. And that's going to be my difference, my relative difference comparing California to West Virginia. Okay, and then over here, compare minus reference divided by the reference value, and then you're going to times that by 100. Okay, so we've already done this part. Okay, so now that's going to be negative 22,300 divided by, now the reference value changed. It's now 68,900. Okay. All righty. So you got that. Now just calculate it. So 22300 divided by times 100. All right, and I'm not sure what we're going to round this to. We'll say, let's round it to the nearest percent, just to keep it easy. So we got 47.8%, and we're going to round that to 48%. Okay, and then over here, we get negative 32, multiply that by 100, negative 32.3, so we're going to keep that at negative 32. So we're going to say negative 32.3, and we're going to round that to negative 32%. Okay. Now, none of this means anything unless you can make sense of what it's telling you. Okay, just knowing these numbers, what's this actually telling you? So when you read something like this, where it's comparing two things, you understand what it's actually telling you. Okay. All right. So in this case, this one here is comparing California to West Virginia, and it's a positive. So that means California was higher than West Virginia. Okay, so I can write this, I can take this information and I can make a statement like this. Okay, California's, we'll just abbreviate here, California's average income is 48% more than West Virginia's. That's the statement I'm able to say. Okay, so this is using this phrase more than. All right. Question. Okay. Emily, you awake?
Is there a way that you can like unmute her and see if she's snoring?
No, can't unmute. Don't have that control. All right. Okay. Sometimes people log in and then they go, cut the grass and grocery shop and take. All right. Now, here's the other. So if we go over to this one, guys, on this one, we would say West Virginia's average income is 32%. And now I'm going to say less than California's. So that's what our statements allow us to say. The absolute differences are the same, except one's positive and the other one's negative. This one finds out the percent of $46, 22,300 is 48% of 46,000. And this one says 22,000 is 32% of 68,000. So what people don't realize is that these numbers are different. A common mistake or abuse in percentages is, well, if California's income is 40%, 48% more than West Virginia, then West Virginia should be 48% less. And that's not correct. All right. And so a lot of people have no clue of that difference. Okay. These are not going to be the same. All right. Now, the last thing on this is you can write these other ways. So I'm going to say or. All right. So we're going to take this more than and we're going to switch it to the word of. All right. So we're going to take out that. So I could write California's average income is, we're going to fill in the blank here. And then I'm going to take out the word more than and replace it with of West Virginia's. And we'll fill that in here in just a second. And then over here, we can rewrite this as West Virginia's average income is blank percent of California's. So all I did was I changed this phrase to this phrase. change this phrase to of. Okay. So when we change this to of, all right, if California's average income is 48% more than West Virginia's, then its average income is 148% of West Virginia's. So I do 100% plus the 48% we got when we did the relative difference. So that's what happens when it's more than. So when you have a statement that says something is less than, then this percentage is going to be 100% minus 32. So that's 68% of California's. So these two statements are saying the exact same thing, folks, in terms of income. But people have a hard time understanding this over 100% of something. Like, you can't have more than 100%. Well, when you're comparing two things, what this is saying is California's income is West Virginia's plus an additional 48%. So West Virginia's would be 100%, and then you add 48% of it. Okay, see, that's 48. This right here is 48% of West Virginia's. Okay, this is less than, okay, so now I'm taking, this is the same thing as saying that West Virginia's average income is 68% of California's. So these two phrases, guys, make a whole lot of difference, whether you use of or more than, whether you use less than or of. Because on one, you're adding, and on the second one, you're subtracting.